Back to the Future. Of all the films made in the 1980s, this one for me sums up the decade perfectly. Cars, girls, wacky yet cool heroes, fantasy, adventure, action, comedy, and an amazing soundtrack. Released worldwide in 1985, the film propelled both of its stars to worldwide fame. Michael J. Fox plays Marty McFly, a skateboarding, guitar playing high school kid who, through no fault of his own, travels back through time to 1955. This transpires when his longtime friend, Dr. Emmett Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, invents a time machine using a DeLorean, his crazy theories, and a nuclear grade plutonium stash that he stole from some Libyan terrorists. When Doc Brown decides to show Marty his time machine, they are both attacked by these terrorists who are looking for the materials they need to construct a nuclear bomb. During the pursuit, Marty drives the DeLorean and, when the car hits 88 miles per hour as per Doc's instructions, he is inadvertently sent back to 1955, where his hometown is, shall we say, different. Marty is then stranded in the 1950s with no way home as the car was not loaded with enough plutonium at the time for a return trip. To make matters worse, Marty accidentally stops his mother and father from meeting as they should have. This then endangers Marty's very existence, as his mother, played by Leah Thompson, becomes infatuated with him rather than his father, George McFly, played by Crispin Glover. Lost and in need of help, Marty seeks out Dr. Emmett Brown as a younger man in the 1950s. After much persuasion, Doc Brown agrees to help Marty. The film then progresses as the two try to get his parents back together and then get Marty back to the future by harnessing energy from a lightning strike that Marty knows famously hit the town clock tower at a precise moment. So, is it any good? Well, I think you can probably tell by the way I'm talking about this film what I think of the movie. Back to the Future is a feel-good movie in every sense of the word. The plot, to start off with, is just a lot of fun. It's so easy to take a concept like time travel and to bog it down in scientific jargon or have it seem so ridiculous that you never really buy into the story. Back to the Future, however, manages to strike the balance between time travel as a narrative device facilitating the story, feeling believable at the same time, while still being fun and light-hearted. The script is excellent, and Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis, who wrote the screenplay, really developed the story masterfully. Something that never really gets said about this film, but nevertheless is completely true, is that this is one of the best paced films I think I've ever seen. It never drags, dialogue never feels like clunky exposition with characters having to explain the plot. The adventure or action scenes are all paced excellently and happen exactly when they should, as do the comedic and sadder moments. The cast are all superb, and it really is an ensemble piece. I'd like to give special mention to Thomas F. Wilson, who plays Biff. He really created one of the most enduring school bullies of all time. He is both disgusting and hilarious simultaneously. And when I think of a school bully, I think of him. This film also has the role that defined Michael J. Fox in cinema. He plays Marty with great comic flair while still being the classic 1980s cool kid a la Ferris Bueller. Christopher Lloyd's Doc Brown is one of the most memorable of the entire decade, playing the classic 1930s mad scientist, but as an ethical, caring character. Think Baron Frankenstein meets Ray Stantz from Ghostbusters. While both Crispin Glover and Leah Thompson are excellent as Marty's parents, having to play them both as teenagers and when they are in their 40s, the heart of this film is not the individual performances but the chemistry between all of the actors. This above all else creates a world on screen that is so much fun and a real example of how great chemistry can sell a film to its audience. Back to the Future is directed by Robert Zemeckis and he does a great job in all respects. We have to mention, however, that Steven Spielberg had a huge impact on this film as producer, and while taking nothing away from Zemeckis, the film does feel like it has that sentimental Spielberg touch, the same touch that produced films like E.T. It's interesting that another big film of the 1980s, The Goonies, was also not directed by Spielberg, but feels somehow like a Spielberg movie, without taking anything away from Richard Donner. One of the most enduring films of the 1980s, Back to the Future has aged remarkably well. I'm not exactly sure why though. Many 80s films, and some even in the 90s, have aged terribly, but Back to the Future manages to exude elements from that decade while feeling just as fresh as it was when it was released. It may be that, unlike other 80s films, the costume design and music use is not too far out there. Stylistically, the film does play it safe, but for me, that's a good thing. The fact that the film both feels like an 80s movie, but still contemporary, is a tribute to all who worked on it. Lastly, I'd like to mention the score and soundtrack. The score, composed by Alan Silvestri, is not often mentioned in the same breath as Superman, Batman, Jaws, Indiana Jones, James Bond, etc., but it should be. The score is wonderful, fully orchestral, epic, and is a driving force in the film. The mark of a great score is that it blends with the visuals to create a complete cinematic experience, which can definitely be said about Back to the Futures. The soundtrack is also great, provided by Huey Lewis and the News, with classic tracks such as The Power of Love and Back in Time. It is one of the most instantly recognisable soundtracks in movie history. I challenge anyone to not feel better about their day when Power of Love starts up. On a more personal note, in 1985 I asked for two things for Christmas: a skateboard and a guitar, all because of this movie. I skated for a long time but was never very good. However, getting that guitar changed my life as I'm now a professional musician. So I'm maybe biased as I owe this film a great debt, and all because I just wanted to play Johnny Be Good like Marty McFly. For all of the above, I give Back to the Future 9 out of 10. If you haven't seen it, go watch it, buy the DVD, and if you have seen it, well, watch it again. It never disappoints. Thanks for listening.